Hello everyone, you're watching the channel My Favorite Bikes. Today we will talk about the legendary motorcycle. It has been many years, it won't be released in this form, and it will remain in our hearts for a long time. This is a classic Honda Hornet with this beautiful pipe that I really like. It runs parallel to the seat, sticking up a little like this. It's a visual feature of the motorcycle that makes it easily recognizable. The motorcycle is cool, the motorcycle is interesting. It's a classic street bike. In operation, it is very convenient. It is not bulky. It handles great. Indeed, it behaves well on the road. In terms of regular use in the city, there are no complaints about it. For me, as someone who isn't a sport rider, it's a street bike with a slight sporty touch. So, this is the Honda Hornet 600. What do we have in it? We have a 4-cylinder engine inherited from a sport bike. There are 4 valves per cylinder. Inline engine, classic for motorcycles of this type. The engine displacement, as is tradition, is always slightly less than what is stated in the model name. In reality, it's not 600, but 599 cubic centimeters, but we all live with that, we are all used to it. At least it's not 15 or 20, as is often the case. The maximum power is 94 HP, available at 12,000 revolutions per minute. The maximum torque is 62 Newton meters, available at 10,000 revolutions per minute. The motorcycle performs according to all its specifications. It rides great, it rides lively. Here we have a steel frame. Since 2000, both wheels have become standard, 17 inches in the front and 17 inches in the rear. Here we have a classic instrument panel with 2 gauges. Just a beautiful motorcycle for its time. It's cool and a pleasure to ride. Let's start it right away. Awesome. You simply need to turn on the choke. I'm honestly really not used to this. The engine runs smoothly. Here is the factory exhaust. It sounds adequate, a bit more bass heavy than, for example, the Yamaha Phaser. A pleasant, indeed good sound. Leave us your comments about your personal insights and experience with the Honda Hornet. Also, let us know if anyone has had the chance to compare the 600 with the 900. That would be very interesting as well. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. We will definitely find answers and solutions to them. Damn, that's a great seating position, but the seating position is better on the Yamaha Phaser, although this one is also very cool. In contrast to the Yamaha Phaser, it speeds up faster. So, if you settle in, you don't notice much difference in the seating position. I felt the difference already when I rode one for a while and then the other for a while. At that time, I noticed the difference. It is noticeable. Here, it seems like my legs are somehow more cramped. Perhaps a slightly narrower handlebar. The Hornet, here you feel a bit more sporty. Although it may seem that sitting on it is just like sitting on the Phaser. Here you see the legs, here they are on the foot pegs. Here they are definitely on the brakes. And approximately the same on the gear lever on the reverse side. Here are the hands, here is the lean. My height is average. That is why we record motorcycle reviews with me, because I can be in the role of an average person with average height and average weight, and everyone will be able to make a correlation about themselves. Who is above, who is below. I feel really comfortable on it like this, but it's a street bike. It should be comfortable. It should be free of all that crazy stuff. Everything here is just right. The marketing name of the motorcycle is Hornet, but its model is called CB600F. CB is a large family of Honda motorcycles that are primarily designed for urban use. I'm not sure, of course, but maybe CB stands for something like city bike or something like that. Typically, classic Hornets inherited their engines from sport motorcycles. One could say that it draws from its sports counterparts, sports prototypes, and siblings. These were, of course, Honda CBR motorcycles of various models and modifications. Our subject today is the 600cc Hornet CB600F. It appeared in 1998. The engine was borrowed from the Honda CBR 600F3, which was produced as early as 1995. The engine, of course, has always been detuned for a street motorcycle. The torque curve was smoothed out to ensure normal, comfortable operation in urban conditions. And so, from that point on, the story of the Hornet 600 began. Our motorcycle from 2000 can be considered as being between the first and second generations, a modification of the first generation. Let's call it a 1.5 generation. It differs from the first generation in that the front wheel of the first generation 600 Hornet was of a non-standard size, which has driven all Hornet owners crazy since the very first years of production. The front wheel was 16 inches, and it naturally had non-standard tires, which are now quite difficult to find. And this poses a certain problem. Then, starting from the year 2000, this 1.5 generation appeared. It is distinguished by the fact that a standard size 17-inch front wheel was installed with an adequate tire size, which can now be found without any problems. The rear wheel was originally of a standard tire size and has remained so throughout the history of classic Honda Hornet. This is a 17-inch wheel with an 18-width tire and a 55 profile. Another distinction of the 1.5 generation was a slightly increased wheelbase. Personally, I haven't measured it with a tape measure, but I came across this information. I'm just passing it along. If I'm wrong, please correct me. I don't know how this was obtained. The angle of the fork may have changed, and as a result, the wheelbase increased. But to be honest, I am not sure about that. Another distinction of the 1.5 generation was that during this period from 2000 to 2003, the S version of the motorcycle was produced, which is the version with a half fairing. The passenger seat, as is usual on all motorcycles that are not designed for high speed and long distance touring. The seat is tiny, you can fit on it but not without difficulty, and there won't be much room to move around. However, this applies to more or less all motorcycles of this type. Sitting as a passenger is also more comfortable for me on the FZ6. There it's somehow a bit more spacious and it's a little clearer how to settle in comfortably, and it's probably more comfortable to hold on there too. Plus, there's this pipe here that I used to like so much, but as a passenger I've started to dislike it because on one side nothing presses against my leg, which is on the left, but on the right this pipe presses against my leg. It's problematic to place my legs close to the motorcycle equally. Maybe it also heats up leg burn, but during the ride the exhaust pipe does not burn your leg. Experienced passenger says now, this is definitely already a big plus, but I can't sit comfortably on it at the moment. I just keep sliding down somewhere. If I don't lean against the rider, and to be honest, I don't really want to lean against the rider. This is the seating position, and there are some questions about it, especially regarding the passenger seat. However, the motorcycle is meant for the city. It doesn't imply that you'll be traveling across 3 to 9 countries on it, therefore it is possible to live. Naturally, each motorcycle has its own, as they say, soul and character. Here, the character is quite explosive, rather lively, similar to what it was like on those classic motorcycles with carburetors. They don't handle in a very linear way, unlike more modern motorcycles. You need to get used to them. You have to find the right approach for each such motorcycle. Everything is great here, both in terms of speed and dynamics. The Hornet 600 reaches speed of 220-230 kilometers per hour. It's 140 miles. At that point, you will start to feel the wind pushing you off. The naked style of the motorcycle also plays a role in the passive safety of the rider, because on a sport bike you can hide behind the plastic casing and ride monstrous speed, not feeling this speed due to the developed wind protection. You can't do that on a street bike. When you accelerate to more than 120 kilometers per hour, you will feel such pressure. With the wind, it becomes impossible not to realize that you are riding at a very high speed. But if you really need the motorcycle to accelerate, it should accelerate further to 220-230 kilometers. Its acceleration to 100 is also quite brisk, or up to 62 miles per hour takes about 3.2 seconds. You will leave all the cars at the traffic light, which is enough to feel good and confident in the city. If needed, the dynamics will be provided for you. Despite all its sportiness, up to 6,000 revolutions per minute, you can ride calmly and accelerate very predictably. It will run smoothly, not trying to take you to the other side. It will be smooth, cool, and stable to ride. Here is what we see on the dashboard. Here we can see the traces of the motorcycle's rich life experience in its surroundings. We have, as usual, but what is this? Signaling with high beams, right? Yes. Low beam, high beam, signal, turn signals, choke. Because the motorcycle is carbureted, it has a choke. On the right side, everything is quite classic. We don't see anything unusual here. There is the engine shut-off, engine start, and adjustment of the lights, dimensions, low beam, and light switch off. On those motorcycles from that era, it was able to turn off the lights or just leave the parking lights on. Now this is not possible. It's a pity that it can't be done now. Turn signals, two bulbs, neutral light, and oil light. When we start it, it will disappear. Here are two classic large gauges. The engine temperature gauge and a tachometer marked up to 15,000, with the red zone starting at 13,000. There is a daily odometer, also known as a trip meter. There is also an odometer for the entire lifespan, and high beam light. It has competitors to contend with, but we will not dwell on them in this overview. You can check out our review of the Yamaha FZ6, and their competitors are generally the same. I mainly compared it with the Yamaha FZ6, and I mentioned this in the review back then, and I can repeat it now, that I prefer the seating position on the FZ6, but it all comes down to what each person wants to get from a motorcycle. If you want more excitement, then the Honda Hornet is probably a better fit for you. If you are looking for a bit more comfort, then the Yamaha FZ6 might be more suitable. One of the advantages compared to the Yamaha FZ6 is that the Honda Hornet feels more confident at low revs than the Phaser. It doesn't require as much revving to keep the motorcycle in good shape. Both of these motorcycles perform excellently in operation, and neither is too demanding in terms of maintenance. As long as you change the oil on time, you can ride them for years without experiencing any serious problems. Reliable, dependable motorcycles. Dear viewers, I thank you for watching this review. If you enjoyed the video, please like the Honda Hornet and subscribe to my favorite bikes. I recommend considering it if you are choosing something similar. Additionally, since they were produced a long time ago, they are already many years old, which is why they are also not very expensive. At the same time, they are quite reliable, and you can buy one and ride it for another 10 years without any major problems. It all depends on which specimen you end up with. We'll wrap it up here. See you soon. Bye.